All right, so we are ready to roll, and we're going to jump right in for the first part with the kick and the bass. It's always just a logical place to start in terms of a track deconstruction, since everything, of course, is built on top of that foundation. The kick is nothing more than a sample I've had around. I've used the sample in a couple of other tracks as well. I believe it's the one I used in Black and White and into my Lift 2019, or was it 2018? Doesn't matter. It's just a good kick, nice cut through really nicely, and doesn't even have any, I think it's pushing a little bit hard right now, but it doesn't even have any additional processing on it at all. I think I resampled it really early on in the production process, so it's just not really any processing going on anyway. However, I do a little bit of processing later in the track where I do things like this, and another time it does it slightly differently over here. So, I mean, do these types of kind of crazy quick rolls, you just set up yourself a little quick loop, resample it, and then I'll take that and put it into a sampler like this. We'll just do it again. So pop it in there, go like that. It's just to turn on the loop. Yeah, I should be explaining that a little bit better, I guess, right? And then you just, how do I do this, with a pitch bend, or do I do it with a portamento glide? Let's see. I did this particular one with a pitch bend. So this is doing pitch bend, so I'm guessing I have my MIDI set to +24, my bend range +24, and of course in the, it's not going to sound right just yet because, yeah, that's another cool effect actually. The reason that happens is because I'm going all the way down on the pitch bend wheel and then up to all the way up, so it's a complete range of 48 semitones, not 24. So to compensate for that, we just go into pitch and just go hold shift and just hit up twice for going up by octaves, and now I've transposed the sound up 2 octaves so that when I go down it starts at the correct pitch, like here. And that would be that, and that's it. And just speeds up really fast. You can also, alternatively, you can do it with, if I was to make a new sampler, and you can totally alternatively do it, and you get all sorts of cool results too, by taking that same loop, popping it in, looping it. So where's my C3? Because of course everything always defaults to C3 is the root notes. That's where you're going to hear the sound. Yeah, so there's the sound correctly. Let's go to pitch, turn on the glide, and set it to kind of a longer value, so it takes a little bit longer to get to it. You'll see what I mean. And then you just hold down the keys on your keyboard, and then back down, and then down again, and then back up. So I think you kind of see how that's going. So yeah, it's just me hitting random keys on the keyboard, and then you can, you know, it speeds up, slows down, just like you would anything. And it's really fun. I love doing effects like that. The other one is I'm assuming this is the same technique, or was this done the other way? No, this is done with MIDI notes. Yeah, so this is this one here that happens later in the track. This one is actually done with the MIDI note glide technique on the sampler. So that's going to be set to glide, 828 milliseconds, so it kind of just goes right up. Yeah, and then that's that. And then onto the bass. We can delete this because we did that already. And so this is the original bass. So I've already done the whole cut every single note out, do quick fade outs, you know, all that. But I felt that was kind of robbing you of the journey to actually create the bass from scratch. And I've been through every version of this project. I must have locked this bass into audio, you know, before I even did any other elements. So here we go. We're going to try to recreate the bass, or maybe even outdo it from scratch. And just to save time in the video, it's not going to be necessarily from scratch, but we're going to turn off all this stuff here. This is just for, yeah, I'm going to leave that there to demonstrate what that does. Let's turn this off temporarily. And yeah, that's pretty good run there. Let's just turn all this off. So let's bring up an oscilloscope. This is kind of the one I usually use. I know it doesn't line up. I know a lot of people, that would drive a lot of people crazy, but it doesn't drive me crazy, so that's fine. And And I'll just loop very, very short bit here. Let's just hear the bass, because that would drive me crazy. Okay, so there's our waveform. It's not really ending at the 0 crossing before the next note starts, so let's try to experiment a little bit so we can just get a little bit tighter. And then the other thing, let's go right into zebra. It's, of course, these types of bass are always one oscillator. I'm sure there are exceptions to the rule. And of course, I have a mid bass underneath it anyway, so you don't necessarily need to follow that rule, I guess, if you don't want to, but I always find it gives the most focus when you stick with one oscillator overall. You can, I like to assign 2 different filter envelopes to the filter. Of course, always low pass, and zebra is my favorite one for this, because number one, you can shape the oscillator nicely, and you can just, you can actually see the oscillator shape changing a little bit. See? And I just really get nice results with it. Always sawtooth wave for this type of bass, of course. You can change the phase. Some synths seem to actually affect, to show the phase change of an oscillator more than others. Zebra doesn't show it so much, so I just leave that as is. The most important thing is having separate control over 2 envelopes affecting the same filter envelope. And the reason I say that is because I like, it's kind of in the reverse order, but envelope 2 is kind of doing your main body shaping, and I'll just turn off envelope 3 completely. And you can, so this is kind of shaping how it's a bit slower. This, I can also set the sustain of where the filter is ending, for the filter cutoff is ending in its motion, you know. And for filter 3, I like to engage it to bring in that extra pop. It's just a little click, and you can, really short. I like that little pop. Some people wouldn't like it, some people would filter it out. That's a matter of taste. I kind of like it in there. Next thing, I know that I put a bit reduction, so I put like a Redux plugin, literally a Redux plugin out of Ableton, and just a little bit less. There's a million different types of these. You can get third-party ones as well. I think in the case of Matter of Time, I did use the Ableton Live proprietary one. I'm going to pop on an LFO tool just for the basic. Now, in terms of this, I use it more like almost like velocity sensitivity on volume, as opposed to, you know, your curved envelope for LFO tool. So to do that, you just set the snap to 4, hold down Shift, and then you have like basically like a step editor in terms of volume, which is nice. I like it a lot. So I just hold down Shift, set the snap to 4, and then I can just freely set these volumes. I kind of just go here, here, and that's my LFO tool set. Now you might be wondering, why am I putting in the LFO tool in the chain so early? It's because what's going to follow is eventually one of these. I believe this is my, yeah, okay. What follows it immediately is in the linear phase mode Pro Q2, and as we all know, as Ableton Live users, I think most of you have experienced this already. If you put the LFO tool behind the Pro Q2 in linear phase mode, you're in big trouble. Check out what it does for the timing. That's weird. Now it works. Normally, just take my word for it. Normally it does throw the timing out. I'm not really sure why that didn't happen just now. That's very bizarre, but I'm going to still stick with what I'm used to here. And so the linear phase EQ is more or less so it doesn't. What I've noticed is when you don't use linear phase mode, what we really care about is keeping this waveform nice and tight, and we're going to start to process it. And what we just don't want to do is throw the waveform out of whack. And when it's not in linear phase mode, it tends to be more affected. So yeah, I mean, you got to use linear phase. That's also a big reason as to why a lot of people resample the bass into audio, so you don't have to worry about any of these latency issues. You just got the audio straight up, and there's no more latency. So that's one thing to just always keep in mind and consider. Now, on to the first bit of processing. We're going to split the bands. This is the most important thing in any type of bass that's in this style, this hybrid, this size style. I'm finding it even more increasingly important in regular trance as well, and to split the bands and not apply any. You can do it with any band splitter. I like Saturn for this. It's got a really cool way of recombining. Of course, the original way of doing this historically has always been using the old Quadrafuzz out of Cubase, the proprietary one in the old Cubase SX series. And that was like the classic way, and I actually keep a Windows computer around here just to do this. And but there are, of course, new ways of doing this, and it's built around the concept of band splitting and how whatever plugin is recombining those bands, and then you're going to get. So if I let's just disable the Saturn completely and just show you from scratch. And this is just, I think it's always much more fun to teach this visually. So there's your saw. Let's just turn it down a little bit so you can really hear me a little better. Okay, better. So let's go get a Saturn. Patch it in after. So you're already starting to shape it because the drive is just on by default. I need to change that. I've just done a reformat. So it is shaping it a little bit. We don't really care too much about that because we're going to give it teeth now. And I just call it giving the waveform teeth because that waveform there is a very boring one. And there we go. Now I've just done one band split and the harmonics are already popping through. And there they go. They're starting to even out. And that is, I kind of, let me just try to make this a little bit, yeah. Now these teeth look really good. They're evenly spaced out. I can really trust this. You know, when the waveform starts to look a little bit more messy is when your bass is losing its focus. So you really want, you know, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 teeth on every single bass note, right? And I think it looks really kind of cool. Kind of cool, yeah. It's cool with me, I guess you could say. Now I think we're getting to the point where it might be past the point of diminishing returns. No, it's still good. It's still useful. Let me get in there a little bit more. I like that a lot. We'll try to do one more, but I don't think we need it. We don't need it. Okay then. So you know that's just changed. I can get rid of this first one. I think I like this result even better. So let's just change this, you know, normal saw wave into something a little bit more locked and loaded, more focused, a bit more harmonics that are going to come out of it. And yeah, on to the next thing. This is totally optional. This will make the sound pop even more. It's called Disperser by Kilohertz. It's a pretty unique plugin based on phase rotation / all pass filtering. At the risk of not being able to scientifically explain it very well, it just sounds really cool. Jeez, I must sound like that guy Carnage, to be honest. But at the risk of, yeah, sounding ignorant, it's just a plugin that does something like this. Let's turn it on. I'll just show you. It's very hard to explain, and then when you hear it, you're like, oh, okay. So let's just turn it on. It's really subtle on the sound right now. I don't have it juiced up too much. If you really turn it up, you can go here. You can kind of see my point. Like it's just useful. It's very useful. And I just do it very little bit, and it adds, you know, you can see what it's doing to the waveform. It's giving even more kind of wild. And then you don't want to use it too much because then it will throw if you just go like this, that's a mess. That's a mess of a waveform. So yeah, you're just gonna write down a tiny little bit so that the waveform is still staying relatively uniform, but it's got a lot of action going on in the waveform, and that's what I love. And yeah, this one here is just a utility plugin, so I flipped the phase of the whole. I always keep this on a sub bass because sometimes when you flip the phase, say when you go with a kick, you can flip the phase of the bass, so it just flips it upside down, and sometimes you'll get a better result. This is just experimentation. See, I like it better when it seems when the motion of the waveform seems to ramp up. But it's always worth trying to do that. Sometimes, you know, you got this kick and the bass, or just you love them both. You don't want to see them go, and they're just not working together. Sometimes that's all it needs to make them click into place. Lick into place. Jesus, where's my mind? And yeah, there you go. And then we got just a utility plugin for just normal. Volume automation, because I always do gain staging. I never ever automate the volume of the actual channels ever. I don't think anybody ever should, because you'll make your life a living hell when you have to go back and adjust levels later in the track during the production process. And yeah, the LFO tool here, this is actually not serving any purpose. I've disabled this completely, the volume automation. This was just here for I was testing latency, and I can turn that off now anyway. So yeah, that should pretty much cover the kick and the bass of Matter of Time.
thanks everybody for watching, commenting, and indeed liking. We really do appreciate all the support we get here on our Sonic Academy YouTube channel. So if you found this video super useful, please, we'd love you to hit the subscribe button. We update the YouTube channel every week with new content, and if you want to watch some more relevant content, just click on the videos beside me.